All right, thanks, Scott Shannon, and thanks to all of you for being with us. Toll-free our number is 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm doing a Joe Biden. Let me slow down. This just in, U.S. Embassy has now urged every American to leave Afghanistan immediately. The U.S. is now having to send troops to help Americans evacuate the embassy in Kabul. I can't believe it. This is pathetic. U.S. officials, are warning now that the Taliban will be seizing Kabul in weeks. So everybody's getting out because Joe not only left, but then he left with him all of our munitions and all of our transportation. That is now in the hands of the Taliban. Great job, Joe. Add that to the great job you've done with Russia. We'll get to this tape of zero experience Hunter with some woman identified as a hooker. I can't confirm that. But talking all about what a gazillionaire he is and his dad and running for president and all the videos he has of him and his exploits, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, I don't care if it's Russia. Look, how many times is Russia going to get to hack us? Why did Russia get a waiver on a pipeline when we're taking away high-paying career jobs on the Keystone XL pipeline? Can anyone explain that? Except that it sounds like in these Daily Mail tapes that the Russians have Hunter Biden and the Biden family completely compromised. Imagine if this was a Trump kid on tape talking about the Russians stealing his laptop that has all this information on it, all these videos on it. Imagine if it was a Trump kid getting $3.5 million from an oligarch in Russia, the former first lady of Moscow. Imagine then Donald Trump okays a pipeline for Vladimir, okays a summit for Vladimir while they're hacking, our electric grid in half the country and disrupting our flow of food and meat in this country. Is that how you respond when somebody attacks you? Imagine Donald Trump forcing South Korea to give mullahs in Iran $7 billion. Imagine the Chinese lecturing Mike Pompeo on human rights after all they did to the world with COVID, and that Mike Pompeo would sit there and not fight back hard from the second those words dared come out of their mouths. Imagine that Donald Trump's president. You think they're going to be threatening the reunification of Taiwan? I doubt it. You think they'd be lecturing America on planes landing in our allies' military bases in Taiwan? I doubt it. You think they'd be saying outwardly that if America's military dares intervene, that there's going to be 1.5 billion Chinese people that are going to kick our ass, and that American military bases will be attacked and Japanese military bases will be attacked, and saying that reunification with Taiwan, meaning the takeover of Taiwan, is imminent, and that Donald Trump would sit there? Maybe you're not so offended by Donald Trump's tweets. Maybe Donald Trump's strength and unpredictability ended up being a good thing for national security because the world took him seriously. And all this talk about, compromising materials in the hands of the Russians, clearly the Bidens are compromised. And on the issue of China, they're compromised there, just like they're compromised in Ukraine and Kazakhstan and God only knows where else. But it seems that, that's not important enough for the media mob. As if inflation wasn't bad enough. High gas prices. Do you know how humiliating it is? I find this the most humiliating thing. We were, for the first time in 75 years, energy independent. For the first time in 75 years, we didn't take in a single barrel of oil from the Saudis. In the last, 6 months, a year, Donald Trump's president, not one barrel of oil. We didn't give a flying rip about what OPEC did or didn't do. The record low prices we had for a gallon of gasoline and the price of heating and cooling our homes, the record lows we had there, was not by accident. It's because of Donald Trump's energy policies and the fact that we opened up ANWR, that we continued building the pipelines, that we allowed for energy production. We told energy companies, go for it, and they did. And we benefited as a result. Now we're all paying $1.30 a gallon, but the worst part is we're no longer energy independent. That didn't take long. I mean, after shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, ending drilling on federal lands, killing the president's opening up of ANWR for energy exploration, which would have created, hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs in the end. Now the Biden administration, now we're begging OPEC to rescue America from soaring energy prices. Countries, a lot of which frankly hate our guts, and we're giving them power over our national security. Think of the security benefits of being energy independent. We don't have to give a flying rip about the Straits of Hormuz because we make our own energy, the lifeblood of the world's economy. And while in the interim, if some genius liberal comes up with cheaper energy that's cleaner, go for it. I'm all for cheaper energy and cleaner energy. Find it. But that right now, the world relies on oil, gas, and coal. Until you come up with that better way, certainly you don't like nuclear energy. I think about 75% of France is powered by nuclear power plants. Not in America. Can't happen. The environmentalists control everything. So now they're being slammed, the high price of a gallon of gasoline, and it's only going to go higher, up about $1.30 a gallon. Anyone that drives a car, you see what happens when you fill up your tank. And I can afford it, and it annoys the living hell out of me. I don't know why it annoys me. I don't know. I still think like the way I did when I didn't have any money, which was a lot of years of my life, of my adult life early on. I never expected to have money. And I go and instead of paying, $30, now I'm paying $40, $45. It pisses me off, to be very frank. I'm like, why do I have to pay all this extra money? And that means everything you buy costs more. That pisses me off, too. It's just in my DNA. I can't help it. Linda, you're laughing. Why are you laughing? I see, that it really does annoy me. I don't want to pay more than I have to. I'm like, okay, this is preventable. It's good for national security because then we don't have to worry what the Iranians do in the Gulf of Hormuz. We don't have to worry about what these countries that hate our guts. We don't have to be begging OPEC to increase their production. At the critical moment in global recovery, this is simply not enough. Jake Sullivan complaining, President Biden's national security advisor sucking up and complaining that OPEC has failed to sufficiently ramp up oil production levels following the COVID pandemic. Hey, Jake Sullivan, I've got a suggestion for you. Go back to the Trump energy policies and we won't need their oil. You won't need to get on your knees and kiss people's ass for oil because we have plenty here that we can rely on. Governor Abbott said we'll produce as much as you let us. Open it up again. To have our own national security at this critical moment in global recovery, it's not enough. Well, why don't you do your part then? Why are you shutting everything down? Why did you allow Germany to do, billions and billions of dollars in business with Russia and Putin, of all people? Why did Joe give a waiver to Putin to build his pipeline and shut down our pipeline? I've had guys call in that had high-paying career jobs that very specific skill sets they developed over 20, 30, 40 years doing this. $150,000, $250,000 a year jobs, real jobs for Americans to live a good life, to have a nice home and a nice car, truck, take their vacation, eat out at a restaurant whenever they want, and not have to worry about it. Those jobs are gone. Oh, well, we want you to get other union jobs, high-paying union jobs. Well, where are they? Price of a gallon of gasoline just keeps going up and up and up. And now Biden's now got our own national security agency and advisor sucking up to OPEC to increase oil production. One day after the UN's Code Red climate report. Agree. It's humiliating. Producer price inflation hit a record high. Producer prices accelerated at the fastest annual pace on record in July as supply chain disruptions and material shortages continue to put pressure on costs. You know, you look at the cost of everything is much higher. I mean, core prices climbed 6.2%. This means every American, you're paying more for everything, but you're not being taxed? Yes, you are. Concern about inflation, 86%. In June of it's up from June at 83%. We didn't have any inflation issues when Donald Trump was president. Maybe his tweeting is not so offensive today. You're precious, you're getting the vapors. Oh, the president tweeted something that was unpleasant. Oh, excuse me. Unbelievable. So the White House now increasingly seeing rising gas prices for what they are, the source of their own political peril, but it's one of their own making. I think I'm like the only one screaming, okay, you have vaccine passports, you have vaccine mandates, you have mask mandates, but you're letting, we just announced 212,000. It just came out just as we're coming on the air today. 212,000 illegal immigrants that we know of coming in the month of July. This will be a 25, 30-year record of illegal immigrants making it into the country in the middle of a pandemic and then thrown in Joe Biden's crowded cages and then flown in the dark of night and dispersed all around the country. And then when Americans have contact with the high percentage of illegal immigrants that have COVID, as high as 20%. By the way, there was a GAO report that shows 35% of Border Patrol have contracted COVID-19. You think Joe's crisis at the border might have contributed to that greatly? 24 have died. I would say yes. And if Americans get into contact with people, they're going to have to go to stores. They're going to have to buy food and water or whatever. I'm not sure if they're masking up. They certainly haven't been tested at the border. Draconian measures for Americans and no testing for illegal immigrants. They get processed and dispersed around the country with no warnings. It's pretty amazing. Wall Street editorial board, Biden has an inflation problem. Real average hourly earnings declined for 7 months. I went over those numbers yesterday in detail. Inflation hits home. Appliance industry consumers are paying up dramatically higher than in the past. Laundry equipment is up 17.9%. You want a refrigerator? It's up 12.3%. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but those are expensive items. Inflation wiped out America's pay raises, all of it, according to one article that came out today. I mean, it's just pathetic. We have a booming economy. The labor shortage could be a long-term problem all over the country. Well, that's the added benefits that just continue. And now they're going to spend a whopping total of, $6 trillion. It's actually $6.231 trillion in new Green Deal spending. And that's money, I'm telling you, you might as well just throw it down the toilet. It's Solyndra on steroids and human growth hormone. It's just going to be years till we find out that I'm right in my prediction. You're a parent, you're a grandparent, you love your kids. You send your kids off to school, they get indoctrinated, they get brainwashed into being good little socialists, and you wonder and scratch your head and like, what can I do and how do I reinforce the values that are important to me? You know, values like freedom and liberty and personal responsibility and capitalism and limited government, free markets. Well, this is where the website that we put together comes into play. It's called TuttleTwinsHannity.com. Now, it's an amazing series of books for kids aged toddlers all the way through their adult years, and it teaches and reinforces your conservative values. Amazing. And literally it's the antidote and the counter-programming to the brainwashing that's going on in most kids' schools these days. Anyway, they've sold millions and millions of copies. Parents love it. Grandparents love it. We've set up a special website for you. It's Tuttle, Tuttle, Twins Hannity, one word, TuttleTwinsHannity.com. You'll get 35% off your order. We'll also give you all their activity workbooks absolutely free. Help create the antidote for the young kids in your life, your grandkids, your kids. Just go to TuttleTwinsHannity.com right now.